read the Gospels, it becomes very obvious, very quickly, that Jesus spent a lot of his time with people who are on the margins of society. He spent time with prostitutes, with lepers, with tax gatherers. The very first time he got involved in public ministry, he went to his hometown in Nazareth, and he stood up in the synagogue. You can read about this in Luke chapter 4. And this is what he said: "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he has appointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim that captives will be released, the blind will see, the oppressed will be set free, and that the time for the Lord's favour has come." He announced his ministry by saying good news was for the poor, that release would be proclaimed for captives, the blind would see, oppressed would be set free. Jesus was speaking to people on the margins of society. Now, one of the things that you notice if you look at Bible translation is Bible translation echoes Jesus' preoccupation for people who are on the margins. The languages that we're translating the scriptures into are languages that are minority languages. Very often people who've been looked down upon, who are economically sidelined by bigger and more powerful groups. When you're translating the scriptures, you are very, very literally announcing the good news to the poor. Let me give you an example. This lady here, she's called Therese. She lived next door to my wife and I when we were working in Ivory Coast. She's a lovely lady. She's bright, she's witty, intelligent, but she's also very poor. She and her family are probably living on something like £200 a year. Very hard to make ends meet when you're living on that sort of sum. But Bible translation, first of all, brings God's voice to her. She has no education. She can't speak French or a major language. So translating the scriptures into her language allows her to hear God's voice. But it goes further. In this country, she'd probably be a university graduate with access to all sorts of healthcare. But being a poor rural African, all of that is denied her. But alongside the Bible translation project, there is literacy work going on. She's able to learn to read and to write, and that opens up a whole new world. Studies have shown around the world that the best way of preventing infant mortality is to teach women like Therese to read and write. The best healthcare, the way to protect her babies, is to give her access to education and to literacy. You see, when God reaches down with his words and he comes down to the poor, he does preach good news to them. Good news in eternity and good news in time. And Bible translation isn't just about the message of the Bible, but it's a message of God's care for people like this. Jesus came down to earth. He came down to our level. He identified with people on the margins. And every time the scriptures are translated, it's as if God was coming back down to earth and living with the poorest and the marginalised on this planet. Because that's what sort of God we serve, and that's what he wants to do. Thanks very much for being a part of it.